Excellencies, distinguished guests, and dear colleagues, I'm very pleased to welcome you this morning to celebrate together the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. My name is Delphine Chance. I am the representative of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC office here in New York. And I'm very happy to see you all here and those of you that are connected online for this special event. So judging really from the number of all the people in this room, but also the one that have actually expressed an interest in participating online to this meeting, we understand that this is a very interesting and important topic to be covered. The trafficking in persons by criminal groups, and particularly a focus on forced criminality online. As you know, this is a very important year when discussing the issue of the fight against human trafficking, because as every 4 years, we have the appraisal of the global plan of action on the human trafficking. This is an important process, which is an opportunity for member states to reaffirm their strong commitment to fight human trafficking in all its forms, and to really look at actions that were actually made in the previous political declaration to see about their relevance, what needs still to be done, and steps to be made. And we're very pleased and honored to have with us today the two co-facilitators of this process, Ambassador Michael and Johnny Beck from Cyprus and Tajikistan, who will be making some remarks on where we stand in the negotiation of the political declaration. But in the initial meetings with member states have actually highlighted the importance of forced criminality as an emerging trend to be discussed in the context of human trafficking. And as you know, this year's theme for the in the World Day is human trafficking is organized crime, and we need to end the exploitation. So it really highlights the role of law enforcement community, but also at large the criminal justice system in dismantling organized criminal groups and how they engaged, and learning more, who are the victims, who is carrying out this type of activities, who are those victims, how are they trafficked, and some of the policy responses that we can actually drive. So this event is really to inform member states while they're engaged in the political declaration, and see whether their solution and whether whatever will be in the political declaration really address this particular topic. So many of you have actually seen the latest report of UNODC, the Global Trafficking in Person report, which was published last November. This is normally, again, a big piece of research that has various detailed statistics to help member states also to guide them while they're engaging in negotiating this political declaration. And it highlights that when it comes to forced criminality, we really see an increasing trend of the number of detected victims by forced criminality, going from 1% in victims detected in 2016 to 6% in 2018, and it now reached in the latest data, which are from 2022, to 8%. So this form of criminality has really emerged in the last year, and particularly in the context of cyber-related fraud. This phenomenon has surfaced in Southeast Asia, particularly in special economic zones where there are well-established transnational criminal groups that are really trafficking persons and coercing them to commit any kind of online frauds. This phenomenon, so-called as the scam centers, is actually now propagating in various regions of the world, hence really the call for a more coordinated response. So this is where also this political declaration is a good opportunity to really make sure that the international community is taking some strong measures and commitment to address this particular issue of forced criminality in the context context of human trafficking. We will have a very interesting panel with us with a mix of intervention broadly from the law enforcement perspective, from the survivor's perspective, because after all, this is really the key of this World Day, is really to celebrate and honor and to give a voice to the victims of human trafficking, and particularly in this case of forced criminality. And we'll also hear from the perspective of the private sector. We'll have with us a colleague from Meta who will really be bringing how they're actually detecting these kind of cases and kind of like policy response. Do they have measures, prevention measures that are actually adopting at the private sector side to actually be able to detect victims and this kind of online scam cases. So, but before that, and since we've been talking about the global plan of action and the political declaration, which will be, which is ongoing, which is being negotiated by member states, I would like to give the floor to Your Excellencies, maybe to say a few words on where we stand in the process. I don't know. Thank you.
And good morning to all colleagues. We are at the moment at the stage of reviewing the comments received at the last informal consultation on Rev 1. And we hope by the end of the month to have a clearer idea of how we will proceed. We have been also engaging in bilateral consultations with countries that have specific red lines, and we're trying to see how to breach the various positions. And we will circulate the revised Rev 1 shortly. I don't know if my colleague wants. Okay. May I proceed with this? So, on behalf of Ambassador Hikmat and myself, I wish to thank the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime for convening this timely and critical event today on the occasion of the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. We also warmly thank all speakers and panelists for their insightful presentations that will be made during our discussion today. It is an honor to address you today in our capacity as co-facilitators to produce a political declaration on the implementation of the UN Global Plan of Action to combat trafficking in persons that will be adopted by the GA at the opening segment of the high-level meeting on the appraisal of the United Nations Global Plan of Action to combat trafficking in persons that is to be held on the 24th and 25th of November in accordance with the GA Resolution 79/286. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, trafficking in persons is a heinous crime and a serious global issue affecting millions of people worldwide. It is a crime that transcends borders, exploits vulnerable women, men, girls, and boys of all ages, a great violation of human rights offending human dignity. Undoubtedly, the nature of this crime is complex and multifaceted. Despite the progress achieved, trafficking in persons persists as a global issue impacting states and their citizens in every region. It is alarming that according to the UNODC Global Report on Trafficking in Persons of 2024, the number of victims detected globally in 2022 increased sharply again, and events surpassed pre-pandemic levels, rising by 25% compared to 2019. Nowadays, trafficking in persons is evolving in deeply concerning ways, with trafficking of individuals for the purpose of forced criminality, particularly in the digital and cybercrime spaces, being one of the most important alarming developments. According to the Global Plan of Action, Global Report on Trafficking in Persons of 2024, we see a rise in trafficking for forced criminality as organized crime models evolve and increasingly exploit victims through online scams. This form of trafficking, including the emerging trend of online scams, now ranks third globally in terms of the number of victims detected. It is indeed alarming that technology is being weaponized not for progress, but for exploitation and victimization, a crime that goes beyond national borders. Thus, our discussion today is quite timely and important. And now I pass the floor to my co-facilitator, Ambassador Hikmat.
Thank you, Ambassador Mikhail, and good morning, dear colleagues. Delphine, thank you very much for organizing this important event and where we celebrate this important date. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, United Nations Global Plan of Action to combat trafficking in persons adopted by General Assembly on 30th of July 2010 through Resolution 64/293 marked a significant milestone in our global fight against trafficking. It reaffirmed our shared commitment to protect victims, prosecute perpetrators, and strengthen international cooperation. As we begin the 2025 appraisal, we are at another pivotal moment. 15 years since the Plan of Action was adopted and 25 years since the adoption of the UN Protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children, supplementing the UN Convention against transnational organized crime. In this context, we must also recall our commitment under the 2030 Agenda and the Pact for the Future, both of which underscores the urgency of ending trafficking in persons. The upcoming high-level meeting of the General Assembly in November offers a unique opportunity. It allows us to take stock of the progress, identify persistent gaps, and reaffirm our collective resolve through a concise and action-oriented political declaration. The Modalities Resolution 79/286 also draws our attention to emerging challenges, namely trafficking through new technologies, including the role of artificial intelligence, and trafficking for forced criminality. These trends highlight how this crime is constantly evolving. As co-facilitators of political declaration, we remain committed to leading an open, transparent, and inclusive negotiation process in full alignment with the mandate entrusted to us by Member States. Excellencies, dear friends, on this World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, let us reaffirm a simple truth. Human dignity is non-negotiable, and trafficking in person must no longer be tolerated. To this end, to end this heinous crime, we need effective multilateralism and stronger partnerships among government, the UN system, civil society, academia, and the private sector. Let us move forward with unity, clarity, and determination. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, for highlighting all the strong commitment that you've taken upon yourself in leading this discussions for this new political declaration with regard to the Plan of Action. And thank you also for putting this in the context of the 25th anniversary of the Palermo Convention, the Transnational Organized Crime Convention, and its dedicated protocol on human trafficking, which are really the legal basis under which this entire global plan of action has actually been elaborated. And it's very important also to highlight, since the theme for this year is really to dismantle criminal groups, because human trafficking is an organized crime phenomenon. It was very important to really thank you for highlighting this connection. But you've also mentioned that the primary goal of all this member states' commitment is indeed to protect victims. Victims of human trafficking, victims who also are forced and compelled to be engaged in some criminal activity through their being put after being trafficked, and this is really where we're going to shed light on this particular aspect with the testimony of some survivors, because we really want to make sure that they're really at the center of this discussion. So we're going to now first hear our first panelist, a pre-recorded message from Ms. Le Viet An, who's country director of Hagar in the Vietnam office, who will speak on behalf of the survivors of trafficking in person for the purpose of forced criminality. As I mentioned, Southeast Asia has really been the place where such through the scam centers have been taking place, and so it's important to really kind of understand how those victims are being trafficked. Hagar is an international nonprofit organization that works globally with survivors of exploitation and trafficking in persons, including in the country where the trafficking of forced criminality are taking place. So this is why we're very happy to have Ms. Viet An, who's representing the Vietnam country office. So we'll hear a short video from her. Thank you.
My name is Viet An. I'm the country director of Hagar International in Vietnam. Today I'm here not to speak for myself, but to speak on behalf of the survivors we work with every day. These brave young women and men have lived through unimaginable exploitation. They cannot be here with us on camera today, some for reasons of safety, others because it is deemed too painful, but they want their story to be heard. At Hagar, we are seeing more and more cases of trafficking for the purpose of forced criminality. These are not isolated incidents. They are part of a growing regional chain. Most of the survivors we support were recruited through social media platforms like Facebook or TikTok. They were promised high-paying jobs in Cambodia, Myanmar, or Laos in the areas of customer service, information and technology, or gaming. Some were been told they would work in call centers or casinos, but when they arrived, everything changed. One man whose wife had passed away was led to raise their 2 children on his own, struggling to earn enough money to support them. He was lured by 4 promises on the internet without asking for clear description of the job over there. The huge amounts of money was so tempting, so he just rushed to it. He was taken onto a bus by a stranger, and he couldn't get off. Another 20-year-old man told us he was invited to hang out by a friend, but then was drugged through his ring. When he woke up, he was in a car on the way to a scam center in another country. Therefore, passports were taken as soon as they crossed the border. They were locked in a heavily guarded building and forced to scam people online. When they didn't meet targets, they were beaten or shot with electric wires. Another girl, 17 years old, came across a job post on Facebook, recruiting ex-selling person with high pay. She believed it is because a woman had commented under the post saying that she had done the job before and would accompany her. The girl got into a car and was asked to hand over her phone and passport, and then was trafficked through multiple countries, so from one scam center to another. She was starved, threatened, and told her family would be hurt if she tried to run. She told us, "I didn't even know which country I was in anymore." In these places, the victims are forced to carry out online fraud, romance scams, cryptocurrency fraud, phishing attacks, targeting people all over the world. But they are not the perpetrators. They are the victims. They are people who were trapped, coerced, and abused. Some are even blackmailed with private images or drugged to keep them compliant. Escaping is extremely difficult. Some survivors fled during police raids. Others were rescued by NGOs or sympathetic insiders, and a few managed to run, but even after escape, their trauma is still far from over. Many return home carrying deep shame, fear, and guilt. They have been misunderstood not only by communities, but sometimes even by their own families. One survivor told us, "I didn't want to scam people. I cry every day, but they threatened to kill me if I stop." At Hagar, we work with these survivors on their long journey of healing. We provide comprehensive care, including safe shelter, counseling, case management, economic empowerment, medical care, and a long-term follow-up that empowers survivors to rebuild their lives. We also work with government partners in Vietnam to make sure that victims of forced criminality are identified and protected, not punished. One of the most powerful things we can do is listen. Survivors have told us they want to use their pain to prevent others from being deceived. One said, "I can't undo what happened, but I can make sure it doesn't happen to someone else." But they cannot do this alone, and neither can we. To stop this form of trafficking, we need, first, stronger regional and international cooperation among law enforcement agencies to identify and dismantle trafficking networks that operate across borders. Second, investment in community education and early intervention, especially in high-risk areas, so that individuals are informed and resilient against deceptive recruitment tactics. Third, clear legal frameworks that ensure victims are treated as victims, not as criminals. Fourth, tech companies monitor and remove fake job ads that lure victims into exploitation. Fifth, empower survivors to raise their voices, share their stories, advocate for change, and help shape policies. And last but not least, ensure that trauma-informed care is at the heart of all our intervention to avoid re-traumatization and creating safe, respectful, and empowering environments for meaningful recovery and reintegration of the survivor. We also need to recognize how sophisticated traffickers become. These crimes are not always visible. There are no chains, but there is fear, coercion, and deep psychological support. So today, I speak with urgency and with hope. Urgency because the number of victims is growing, but hope because every survivor we support is a reminder of what is possible when people are lived, protected, and given the chance to heal. On the other hand, I ask all of you, governments, tech companies, law enforcement, civil society, to act with compassion and courage, and to remember that behind every online scam, there may be a young person crying behind a locked door, hoping someone will set them free. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this testimony by Ms. Viet Anh, who's actually working with survivors. UNODC has organized last month the first international forum on for survivors to really get their voice, but also to make sure that the survivors' voice and experience is actually also being heard and translated into clear policy guidance, and also inform member states when they're actually engaging.
Melania, you're next. Can you please turn your camera on,
please? Legal and regulatory frameworks. It is important that these experiences really shed light not only on the situation, ensuring that there is proper awareness raising. Ms. Viet Anh, of course, talk about the raising awareness among communities, but also among governments on this, particularly on this topic, survivors in general, and in this issue of victims being forced to engage in criminal activity, trafficked, and then forced to engage into criminal activity. So she also made an important point in some of the recommendation is the cooperation with the private sector. And the initial phase of those victims being actually trafficked is really because they've been connected through social media platforms. She alluded to some of them. So I think this is why it was important for us to really also get the perspective from the private sector. And we're very happy to have with us Melilla Enlund, who's the head of the safety policy for the Asia Pacific for Meta. To really get Meta's perspective on the issue of those people who are using those platforms and are, being then forced and offering themselves for further recruitment and engage in those criminal activity. So we really very much appreciate Meta's perspective on what are the how they're actually addressing this challenge, what kind of internal policies they've developed, including the cooperation with other social media platforms to really make sure that this phenomenon is actually addressed globally, because as we've indicated, this is not only happening in Southeast Asia, but it's actually now increasingly happening in different parts of the world. So I think we have Melina online. Melina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Good evening from Bangkok. Good morning to you all in New York. It's really nice to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. I wanted to show you maybe 4 or 5 slides to better illustrate the problem on the platform, how we address it, and as you said, describe some of our policies on this issue. I am based in Bangkok, so I am very familiar with the problem and the way it is right now in the region. So basically, my name is Melina Enlund. I'm the head of safety policy for Asia Pacific. I look after human trafficking in the region. This problem is not new for us. I think for the past 3 years, we have been struggling to address this polycrime just like everyone else around the world, because we haven't seen this type of crime emerge before, where we have so many harmful types all into one. We obviously have trafficking, but we also have money laundering, cybersecurity issues, national security issues, sex trafficking, and other forms of harm that occur. I won't go into the problem. I think everyone in the room will be very familiar with trafficking for forced scamming. But what I wanted to talk about today is really how does we approach the problem on the platform, and what do we do about it. So our strategy, generally, these are the 4 pillars that we have. On the policy side, this is where we develop our policies that are sort of a legal framework, very similar to what a country would have, that describe what is allowed and not allowed on the platform. On the disruption and the enforcement side, this is where we have not only tools to disrupt, we have law enforcement teams that work closely with law enforcement in different countries in the region, but we also, besides removing content, we provide data and we provide information and intelligence to law enforcement in order to fight organized crime, specifically related to this type of harm. Prevention tools, this is where I will show you some of our prevention tools, and of course, empowering users. Before I go on, I want to say we have done a lot of work with UNODC and various non-government organizations in the region, specifically on policies, disruption, and prevention tools. So it's really important, and again, thank you for the invite. It's really important to continue these conversations because we cannot fight this alone. So these are our policies. Under human exploitation, the policies, we have human trafficking and smuggling. This was, of course, it's a policy that was designed according to the UN principles and the Palermo Convention, but also it is the most extensive policy on a platform, on a social media platform, and it continues to be a live policy, so we can update it as we go. Trafficking for forced criminality has been updated as of late with the support from the Asia Pacific UNODC office, and we'll continue to update it as the crime emerges. We also have job scam policies and our coordinated inauthentic behavior policy, which is really where we focus on organized crime. How does organized crime appear on our platform? What are some of the targets they have, and how can we remove them, designate these organizations, and remove the content as a whole? Now, I think this is probably of most interest. I only have 5 minutes, but I will try my best here to capture everything. Off the platform, you're familiar. I think you'll hear from the other speakers. Let's focus on the platform. So when we see these job postings, they're usually from inauthentic accounts. A lot of the job posts, they're not ads. If there were ads, we can take that content down at the same time, but they're not ads. They're organic posts from users. These posts appear and they recruit staff for the scam centers in Southeast Asia. We also see a lot of gambling, work from home job scams as well. And we see some of the financial grooming or so-called pig butchering that we see in terms of people being engaged on it. Now, what are some of the issues? Because you think, hey, Meta, why are you not taking these down? It's so easy. They look inauthentic. But some of the issues are, one, these job posts are in some of the local languages, and they offer unrealistic promises. If we see that, we know that it might be connected with human trafficking, but we don't know for sure. And that is where these posts, they look benign. They often look benign. They often offer jobs for people. And in places like Myanmar, people are really looking for a way out. They're looking to get out. So if we stop completely job opportunities on the platform, this will affect not just places like Myanmar. It can affect the whole platform. So we can't really prevent all job postings. So we try to connect the dots together with our NGO partners. Suspicious locations, for example, jobs in Poi Pet. Okay, if the job is in Poi Pet or Cambodia or Myanmar, we can take some of these postings down. The job titles, they're not always the same. They look different, but some of them are very similar. So we're looking for these indicators. The problem is that, as you mentioned before, these job postings are now going to other locations like Dubai, the Middle East. And so these type of indicators are no longer the same. And in one place like Cambodia, they might offer room and board and passport and visa support. In other places like Myanmar, they might offer a higher salary. Again, it's very difficult for Meta as a platform to know which is authentic, which is not. And that's where, of course, we work with you to make sure we take that down. Often the victims, once they make the connection, the recruiter and the victims move offline or to encrypted platforms such as WhatsApp, but also Line and Telegram. As you know, Meta is an American company. Our data is based in the US. For us, it's a lot easier to take content down and to work with law enforcement. It is not always as easy for some other messaging companies, for example, to do so. So on the platform, the availability of posts and the benign look of posts really prevents sometimes the effective takedown of a lot of them at the same time. Now, what do we do about it? So we work with law enforcement and governments. They often would report to us and say, hey, these job posts, can you look at them? And we have investigators teams that will not only look at the job posts, but they'll also connect. When you're on the platform to cause harm, we don't want these people there, obviously. But when you're there to do harm, we try to connect with people who are also doing harm, or you're trying to connect with users in order to recruit them. So we can identify these networks, and we try to take the whole network down when we do that. That is why it's extremely important to report. We have trusted partners that report to us the content, the IP addresses, and the information that we can find the whole network. We have governments who also report and say, hey, these victims found this job on this job post. So we can take the post down, but we can take the network down. And of course, we work with law enforcement in selected countries where we know that they're trusted and we can provide the information. So what have we done about it? Since 2024, we took down and disabled over 7 million accounts that were associated with human trafficking for forced scamming in Southeast Asia, but also in places like Dubai, United Arab Emirates, and others. What I want to say here is the way we did it is that we identified and designated criminal organizations. We approach it through that lens, and that lens allowed us to take down content at scale. The organized crime nature of this type of crime was helpful in that way. For example, if we are to take terrorist networks down, that means all content associated with this terrorist network can come down. It's the same thing for the criminal scam syndicates. The intelligence came from our partners, including UNODC, and that's how we designated, and that is how we were able to take all of these accounts down. This is a continuous effort. Every week we take a certain amount of accounts down. What we also need to continue working on is in expanded locations and new locations. We would love to continue getting reports so we can identify them and take those accounts down. Now, empowering users, these are...
Melina, I'm sorry, could you please wrap up? Because, there are a number of member states who would like to also intervene. I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, sounds good. Last prevention tool here is we prevent people from looking for jobs in at-risk locations through specific keywords. These keywords basically block. We have this block that you see here, and we'll block, and people will be able to get not only resources, but they'll be able to connect to NGOs in their community in order to get support and information for victims. And we have other tools as well, but I'll wrap up here. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Melina, and really apologies for cutting you down. There's always a possibility through UNODC to make sure that you may actually engage directly with Melina. You're talking a lot about reporting, so obviously this is kind of like the next piece in the chain. It's really the cooperation with the law enforcement community. And also we're very happy to have with us Gabriele Scarpa, who's police advisor to the Office of the Special Representative of Interpol here in New York. Interpol has actually been very engaged in this issue of trafficking and forced criminality, and they've actually published very interesting information lately on how this phenomenon is actually now growing and affecting different regions. So very happy to see not only what kind of schemes have actually been seeing in different regions, but also then what is like the response from the law enforcement community. Thank you, Gabriele.
Thank you very much, dear Excellencies, colleagues. I would like to thank UNODC for organizing this event and inviting me and Interpol. We work closely together with UNODC. We are partner in the ICAT, the Interagency Coordination Group Against Trafficking in Persons. So thank you once again for the invitation. I will try to keep my intervention in 5 minutes, and I would like just to share some highlights or how Interpol started working on this modus operandi and criminal trend. Interpol is the largest international police organization in the world, and we have seen and witnessed it firsthand, the devastating impact of human trafficking and how criminal networks are highly adept at exploiting emerging and new technologies. Trafficking in persons in what we know and call as online scam center has been seen and studied since 2010s. This trend and modus operandi surge has a global threat, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. So it started as a regional trend, mainly in Southeast Asia, and then became and evolved as a global threat. Interpol, in 2022, we coordinated a global police operation called Stormmakers. With this global police operation, we gather intelligence, share police information shared by our 196 member countries, and we understood and we studied in depth this modus operandi. For this reason, in 2022, we issue a purple notice. A purple notice is a specific Interpol notice to warn and inform member countries about specific modus operandi. And since 2022 and 2023, we coordinated several other police operations. We gathered more intelligence from member countries, and we released and we issue an orange notice. An orange notice, it's a notice to warn and inform member countries about a global and imminent threat. We studied and we saw at the beginning that these scam centers were located and concentrated in Southeast Asia, especially Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. But now we are seeing how these scam centers are present mostly in all the continent of the world. We see this modus operandi replicated in Middle East, West Africa, Central America. Even the victims of human trafficking are changing. At the beginning were mainly Chinese-speaking people. Now we see victims recruited and exploited, trafficked from South America, Western Europe, and South Africa. So just to give the idea in a nutshell of the global threat and the challenge that we all face together. Interpol has produced, with all the intelligence gathered from member states, 3 analytical comprehensive reports. We shared it with all our member countries and NCBs. Since 2022, we studied and noticed 2 sets of victims. We can call the first set of victims as Group A, the victims of human trafficking. So the people exploited trafficking into the online scam center. These people are lured through fake job advertisement, trafficking into guarded compound, and forced to perpetrate the scams, financial crimes. And at the same time, they, in addition, also suffer other forms of exploitation. At the same time, we have another pattern, another group and set of victims, Group B, who are the victims of the scams. So the people defrauded by the financial crimes and the scam perpetrated by the Group A. And just to share with you some data about a recent trend updated by our unit in Lyon, and these are the results of the Interpol notices issued between 2021 and 2025. Over 70% of identified victims are trafficked to Southeast Asia. 90% of known traffickers originate from Asia, and most human trafficking facilitators are young men, with 61% between the age of 20 and 39. We are also studying how emerging technology and mainly AI can be exploited by these human trafficking networks. AI can be used, for example, to generate convincing fake job advertisement. Language translation tools are misused by criminal networks to reach targets all over the world. It doesn't matter the language they speak. And deepfake technology can also be used to create fake profiles or images for sextortions, romance scams, and so other social engineering schemes. Another important pattern and result of our intelligence that we notice is the convergence of crime. The same trafficking routes used to traffic the victims may also be used to traffic, for example, drug, firearms, and we notice in other operations even protected wildlife. So just to say against this backdrop, what Interpol has done and is doing. Our response is based on 3 levels. On the analytical level, we produce and we are producing analytical report bulletin to inform our member countries. On the operational level, we are coordinated global operation to dismantle the criminal networks behind these crimes and to rescue the victims of human trafficking. At the same time, on the strategic level, Interpol is working to innovate its global capabilities to support member countries. For this reason, we are currently developing a new project to address tech-driven trafficking, including the misuse of AI, and we'll look forward for future funding opportunities for this new project. So just to conclude, what are the key recommendations and what is the commitment for the future to fight this global threat? I would say the first step would be to enhance international cooperation and international police cooperation. And the first pillar of international police cooperation is sharing data, but data must be shared by member countries in a secure and instant way. For this reason, Interpol has the I-24/7, our secure communication channel, which allow member states to communicate in a secure way instantly among all our member countries. The second step should be to enhance partnership. This is a global threat. A global threat requires a global approach, a multi-stakeholder approach. It means law enforcement, UN partners, I already said about our partnership with UNODC, private sectors, NGOs to provide support to victims, but also to address, for example, the misuse of digital platforms. Today, criminal networks mainly communicate each other with encrypted communication platforms, so even the partnership with the private sector is crucial. And just the last pillar is reinforce global enforcement. It's crucial to address, to dismantle these criminal networks, and this is possible through Interpol, which has the clear mandate to coordinate global police operation, to put together all the member states and to dismantle the criminal network and deploying specialized unit to support law enforcement on the ground. So I think I don't know if I made it in 5 minutes. I would like to thank once again UNODC for inviting Interpol, and so the final message is continue to work together against this global threat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabriele. I think you've really summarized it really well in terms of areas of cooperation, but obviously the data is there. But I think to start with is really kind of raising the awareness of the law enforcement community at the country level and making sure that in the policy response, there is first and foremost support to the victim, but also that there is cooperation and exchange of data and information among law enforcement officers, because this is a global phenomenon that does not really limit to the border of the country. So it's important to really enhance cooperation. And this is actually a good transition for the next segment of this side event, which really going to be an opportunity for member states to discuss their topic from their own perspective and really putting the focus on the both regional and international cooperation in the areas of human trafficking and forced criminality. So a certain number of member states have indicated their wish to take the floor. So now I would like to give the floor to the distinguished representative of Belarus, speaking on behalf of the Group of Friends for Human Trafficking.
Thank you, Delphine. Dear participants, colleagues, it is essential for us to participate in the event of the occasion of the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, and I would like to one more time recall that this day was proclaimed in accordance with the UN General Assembly Resolution 68/192, initiated by the Republic of Belarus. And I would like to announce that we introduce an updated version of this resolution this year. This year's campaign highlights the vital role of law enforcement and the criminal justice system in dismantling organized crime networks. So I would like to present some of our best practices. In Belarus, specialized units to combat trafficking in person operating at all levels, national, regional, and even local. Our International Training Center for Advanced Training and Retraining of Personnel in the field of migration and combating human trafficking has become a leading training platform for interested parties from various countries around the world. A separate law on combating trafficking in person have been adopted, and there is a system of measuring to identify, protect, and rehabilitate victims, compensate their damage caused, including exemption from liability, suspension of expulsion, and deportation. The National Special Reporter on Trafficking in Person and a national mechanism for providing assistance to minors have been formed. Preventive and informational work is carried out systematically in the media, on the internet, and directly among citizens. Hotlines are in operation and events are held in educational, healthcare, and cultural institutions. Cooperation with non-governmental organizations and expert community continues, and international cooperation is ongoing through Interpol, UNODC, diplomatic mission, and bilateral agreements, and we emphasize the importance of this cooperation. Due to the measures taken, there were no cases of slave labor, abduction for the purpose of exploitation, or legal activities aimed at employing citizens abroad detected in 2023-2024. Meanwhile, the number of crimes related to child pornography trafficking has increased due to the shift of this act to the internet and development of AI. Therefore, Belarus strongly advocates the inclusion in 2025 political declaration of the UN Global Plan of Action to combat trafficking in person, an expression to concern about increasing misuse of ICT to facilitate the production and distribution of child pornography and other child sexual abuse materials. In this regard, we express our gratitude to the UNODC for organizing today's event and assisting in facilitating of the text of the declaration, and of course the distinguished ambassadors and representatives of Cyprus and Tajikistan for effective coordination of this work. Finally, I would like to underscore that Belarus believes that fast and effective channels for international cooperation, the transfer of evidence, and the legal prosecution of international criminals and crime cartels, as well as assistance to victims abroad, are crucial for ending the crime of trafficking in person, including women and children, once and for all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And I would like to give the floor to the distinguished representative of Colombia.
Thank you, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues. On the occasion of the International Day Against Trafficking in Persons, Colombia reaffirms its steadfast commitment to eradicating this heinous crime of human trafficking in all its forms. We join the international community in raising awareness of the evolving and complex nature of this crime, particularly its growing manifestation in digital environments for the purpose of forced criminality, as has been mentioned throughout this event. Trafficking in persons remains one of the most serious violations of human rights. It strips individuals, most often women, girls, and vulnerable populations, of their dignity, liberty, and bodily autonomy. The statistics already mentioned about the global report are not mere numbers. They are a stark reminder of the lives being disrupted. Trafficking for sexual exploitation and forced labor continues to be the predominant forms of this crime within our borders. However, we are increasingly confronted with an alarming trend: trafficking for forced criminality, particularly in the digital sphere. The global report mentioned that 8% of identified victims globally are trafficked for this purpose, often coerced into participating in online scams or cyber-enabled fraud. This emerging modality is fueled by transnational organized crime networks that exploit vulnerabilities across borders, operating with growing sophistication in cyberspace. These networks not only manipulate victims, but also infiltrate their communities and families using technology to recruit, exploit, and launder the illicit profits derived from human suffering. In response, Colombia has taken a cross-cutting and multi-sectoral approach to address this evolving threat. We are committed to strengthening public policy and law enforcement strategies that integrate technological tools for the prevention, investigation, and prosecution of trafficking in digital environments. Our Attorney General's office is incorporating artificial intelligence and data analytics to better understand criminal patterns, while remaining aware that these same tools are misused by criminals to evade detection. For this reason, one of the key steps to take towards an effective response is to enable large-scale online monitoring to detect fraudulent jobs offers and scams that may lead to trafficking. This could be done through public-private partnerships with platforms. That's why we salute the presence of Meta here today, and we also highlight the importance that Latin America and the Caribbean has in analyzing the numbers that Meta manages through its customers, being the largest region in terms of percentage of population using Meta platforms. In that sense, Colombia underscores the critical importance of this international cooperation in dismantling these criminal networks. We urge the establishment of joint investigation teams, improvement of cross-border intelligence sharing mechanisms, as mentioned by Interpol, and greater collaboration among financial intelligence units to stop payments that fund abuse and exploitation. We echo the call, if the payment stops, the abuse stops. In 2025, Colombia launched the Ciberseguro campaign to educate citizens on online scams and digital crime, promoting digital literacy and personal data protection. Likewise, we continue to operate the Anti-Trafficking Operational Center and the Libert app mobile application, a victim-centered tool designed to report suspected trafficking cases and request emergency assistance, accessible worldwide. Also, as part of our international commitments, Colombia has signed 10 bilateral agreements with Latin American countries to enhance cooperation in the fight against trafficking in persons. We also advocate for the denaturalization of sexual exploitation, particularly of minors, in the context of tourism. Cultural practices that normalize exploitation must be addressed through education and legal accountability and should not be tolerated. Today, Colombia reaffirms that the fight against human trafficking cannot be waged in isolation. It is a global issue that demands global solutions rooted in solidarity, justice, and the protection of human dignity. I want to highlight the importance of the private sector in today's necessities. There are many countries in Latin America being affected by the decision of pulling out of some resources for many programs, national programs. And it is the moment to realize that there are other actors that have to come in and talk to the states in regards of cooperation, in regards of accountability. That's why we mentioned tourism, we mentioned the private-public sector, our partnerships as being a very important set of tools to enhance and rebuild these capacities, not only from the state side, but also from the private sector. Let us stand united in facing this evolving threat, offline and online, and ensure that traffickers are brought to justice and that survivors are empowered to reclaim their futures. I thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, and may I add, thank you very much for also putting the financial dimension of it, because at the end of the day, and we've seen criminal groups are engaging in whatever is more lucrative for them. So the importance of following the money to know who ultimately controls the criminal activities is indeed a very important part of the a blockchain block element of this overall strategy to fight human trafficking. So thank you very much for also highlighting this. And I would like to give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Angola.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First, I thank the UNODC for convening this meeting. This event is an important moment for the world to reflect on the need to raise awareness and reinforce global commitment to eliminate human trafficking, strengthen the resilience of states in this institution, expand support to victims and most vulnerable communities. We emphasize that the victims are increasingly being recruited through social media, where personal information and location details are made available. Traffickers use technology to recruit, control, and exploit their victims. The use of dark web to hide illegal data resulting from trafficking and their real identity from investigators is another concern. Nevertheless, location trafficking applications and the use of GPS in cell phone continue to be used to track victims' location. Additionally, smartphone camera can be exploited during video calls and allow traffickers to see their victims in theirs and their surroundings. We would like to share Angola's experience in combating human trafficking. Angola approved in 2020 its national action plan to prevent and combat human trafficking, to prevent, suppress, and punish traffickers in person, especially women and children. The National Human Rights Strategy was approved in 2020. It outlines action of the Angolan government within the scope of human rights. In 2022, the video surveillance law was approved. It operates through the installation of cameras in public places, aiming to guarantee greater security for people and properties. Also in 2022, the National Referral Mechanism was developed to ensure that human rights trafficking victims are respected and protected. Madam Moderator, at the regional level, we continue to advocate the need for further address the social, economic, social, political, and other factors that make people vulnerable to human trafficking. This includes addressing poverty, unemployment, social inequality, armed conflicts, sexual violence, gender discrimination, social exclusion, and marginalization as vulnerable social factors that may enable people to be vulnerable to human trafficking. We also recognize that the capacity building is a very important component in the fighting against human trafficking in any context, including online. Finally, we call for stronger global coordination response for all efforts to effectively combat human trafficking and protect human rights of its victims. At the end, I also would like to thank the co-chair, Cyprus and Tajikistan, for their leadership in the leading up of the political declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think now we have online a representative from the Stimson Center.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the panelists for their insightful and thought-provoking presentations today. The Stimson Center really appreciates this opportunity to participate, and we congratulate the UNODC for its great work in this area and for convening an event that links the very serious issue of trafficking in persons with the equally serious rise of cybercrime, in particular online fraud and scams. My name is Alison Pitlack, and I'm the director of the cyber program at the Stimson Center, a think tank based in Washington, D.C. And together with our Southeast Asia program, we have been implementing a project on countering online scams with support from Global Affairs Canada and the U.S. Department of State. This has included a lot of different activities, and we are taking sort of a cross-sectoral look, thinking about cybercrime, anti-trafficking, and anti-money laundering frameworks. The scams may take many forms, but what unites them is that they are too often built on a foundation of forced criminality, trafficking in persons, and disregard for human rights and international law. As I mentioned before, our research does not look solely at the trafficking dimension, but this has inevitably surfaced in our project activities. I think that other speakers have done well today at outlining the scope of the problem, so I will not repeat their points, but I did want to share 3 observations quickly from our work. So first is about the issue of victim identification. Evidence on the ground indicates that victim profiles in scam compounds are complex. Trafficked victims may turn into for-profit scammers or recruiters, and people that are initially voluntary scammers may eventually be subject to forced labor. There are also distinctions to be made between the recruiters, the bosses on site, individuals working in scam compounds in auxiliary roles such as childcare, groundskeeping, and of course the larger operation kingpins and masterminds. And this fluidity really complicates legal classification and underscores the need for nuanced and more context-sensitive approaches to victim identification. Recent legislative developments in some Southeast Asian countries where scam compounds exist are beginning to reflect this shift towards presuming that individuals are victims, especially in the compounds, until proven otherwise. And then second point is just in relation to the legal tools at our disposal to prevent further victims. There are, of course, existing frameworks and tools, as have been mentioned today, including the TIP protocol of the UNTAC, the ASEAN Convention Against Trafficking in Persons, and work undertaken through the Bali process. But state and law enforcement officials are encountering challenges in leveraging these tools to their full extent, including because of differentiated legal interpretations and definitions, poor international cooperation and information sharing, limited capacity for digital evidence collection, victims' own reluctance to testify, as well as governance and evidence issues in some jurisdictions. And so I think this really speaks to the importance of global collaboration, a point that many speakers today have mentioned. And as a recent speaker from UNODC in one of our roundtables recently noted, addressing trafficking in the context of cybercrime requires a more holistic legal approach that will integrate cybercrime considerations, labor and organized crime laws to enhance both victim protection and prosecution. And last, I would just agree that I think much more can be done to work with the private sector in preventing further trafficking. This has always been true of working with airlines, hotels, and other actors. But for this specific issue of cybercrime, social media platforms are an especially important player in relation to both the trafficking as well as the online scamming and the cybercrime. So thank you for this opportunity to speak to some of our findings and about our work, and I look forward to hearing from the interventions of others.
Thank you very much. Maybe like a very important point on the victim identification and the kind of the nuanced approach, depending on where the victim is in the scam centers. And I think we've actually seen already from Interpol this kind of two categories of victims, which are addressed differently. But it's very important to see that this is also being translated into government policies. I now would like to give the floor to the final speaker, will be the representative of Romania.
I'm hoping you can hear me. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, thank you to the New York office of the UNODC for organizing this important and informative event on the occasion of the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons and in preparation of the appraisal of the implementation of the UNPOA to combat trafficking in persons. Thank you also to our panelists and co-facilitators for their informative reflections. The fight against human trafficking and the protection of victims of this crime are priorities for the Romanian authorities. Throughout all its stages, human trafficking lies at the crossroads of many areas of intervention. Consequently, any effective approach to this organized crime phenomenon requires strategic coordination, planning, and adaptability across institutions and internationally, as well as multi-sectoral engagement, including with civil society. Romania has recently adopted its fourth national strategy against human trafficking and its associated national action plan. This strategy operates across the institutional spectrum, under the coordination of a dedicated committee led by a state councillor within the office of the Prime Minister. It includes, among other institutions, several working groups which bring together institutional actors in civil society and are tasked with improving our approach to combating this phenomenon. Their work has so far resulted in a wide range of actions and measures aiming at early identification, protection, and referral of victims of trafficking, as well as in other prevention and deterrence measures, including through increased penalties for this crime and for new forms of exploitation. Among many strands of activity, our dedicated National Agency for the Fight Against Trafficking in Persons has focused its attention on diversifying the ways of disseminating anti-trafficking messages through social networks. The agency's social media work aims at both reducing the vulnerability of groups exposed to trafficking risks and on deterring behaviors that facilitate trafficking. It targets audiences through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok, with campaigns that have so far led to an impact on over 9 million people. In addition to this, it constantly publishes and makes materials available and accessible to offline audiences as well. Combating human trafficking also remains a key priority for the Romanian police, which actively cooperates in this field with international agencies including Europol, Interpol, Eurojust, and Frontex. In 2024, our Directorate for Organized Crime Investigations anti-trafficking structures facilitated the creation of 7 new joint investigation teams, bringing the total of these teams to 90 since 2010 and making Romania a European leader in these collaborative efforts. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Romania also promotes and facilitates national and international cooperation on this issue, including with multi-stakeholders, in addition to implementing a wide range of projects through the use of our diplomatic network, including training and information activities with diplomatic and consular personnel regarding various sectoral aspects of anti-trafficking efforts, the development of informative materials, international exchanges of good practices, and operationalizing cooperation protocols with civil society. All these efforts build upon each other and on initiatives from previous years under a long-term strategic vision aiming to reduce this phenomenon and to ensure our ability to flexibly, robustly, and continuously respond to it in line with European, UN, and under international best practices. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your national experience in fighting human trafficking and including through the online platforms. So this concludes this segment of this side event, and because again we wanted to really put like the victims in the center of this discussion. We are extremely honored to have with us UNODC Goodwill Ambassador and board member of the UN Voluntary Trust Fund for Human Trafficking, Mira Sorvino, who maybe can offer us some concluding remarks reflecting on some of the discussion we had. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delphine. And I also want to honor your work here at UNODC. I know this is your last day, and we are so grateful for the incredible work that you've done for victims and survivors worldwide and to combat this terrible crime. I'm very heartened to hear all the interventions today, and the scope of the problem is really vast and growing, and the online landscape is the Wild West at this moment. It's changing constantly. And that doesn't mean that the suffering of the victims is any less important than any of the other traditional forms of human trafficking that we have observed over, since the Palermo Protocol was ratified. And I was a member of the UN Global Plan of Action drafting session, not really a member, I was an observer. And at the time, we decided, and I urged for, and we decided to create a fund for victims called the UN Voluntary Trust Fund for Victims of Trafficking Persons. That fund is around today. UNODC curates it, runs it. And I would say that right now, with the dropout of world aid from, unfortunately, my home country. I apologize, not that I'm responsible for it, but the vast dearth of help that has been created and the destruction of the TIP office. The Voluntary Trust Fund is one of the most important ways that member states and the private sector can step in to fill that gap to support those organizations that are rebuilding victims and survivors' lives on the ground. The fund donates directly to incredibly well-vetted organizations. We always have so many more applications than we can actually make grants, and they're perfectly vetted. We monitor their progress every step of the way. We have, we helped an organization called Blue Dragon in Cambodia that actually, during COVID, found that the women that they were trying to help repatriate, the women who had been sex trafficked, some of them actually then were diverted into these online scams. And then they branched out and realized that there were so many male victims of this, and our support of Blue Dragon actually helped them discover and support victims of this online scamming. I can say for the distinguished gentleman from Colombia, I went to your juvenile cybercrime center. I was vastly impressed with what those tireless workers are doing there to intercept the online child sexual abuse materials. These people work day and night to try and ferret out people who are harming children online in pay-for-play video torture schemes. Really hard to watch, but I applaud the efforts of all of your countries, everything that you're doing. We'd like to help. We'd like to help support the organizations in your countries which are supporting people on the ground. And the only way we can do that is with donations. And every year, member states say they are going to support the fund, but in reality, very few member states actually do support us. So this is a real call to action. Now we hear the severity of this problem. I mean, this is kind of crazy. I mean, this is terrifying, and we've all gotten these phone calls. I mean, last week on my answering machine, there were 4 of these kinds of phone calls. And the same person calling, saying they were calling about something different, the same voice, different name. Obviously, that person was a victim, and I could have been their next victim if I were unsuspecting. But please consider making the UNVTF on your donation list this year. It is one of the most important tools that we have at the UN for creating direct change and supporting all of your national efforts by working with your NGOs who work with your governments and help support victims on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Mira, for letting all of us know about the good work of this of the trust fund and the importance of really getting sufficient funding so that we could provide assistance to the communities that we've been talking about, but to also ensuring that there is this really multi-stakeholder approach to human trafficking. We've been really covering the survivor's perspective, the law enforcement perspective, as well as the private sector perspective, because this only has to be through this kind of public-private partnership that we know we can actually achieve any impact. And yet again, I'd like to really finish this side event by recalling that there is this unique opportunity, which is the appraisal of the global plan of action through this new political declaration. And it's not only a member state-led discussion. There is an opportunity for all stakeholders to really provide their own contribution input to inform member states. So I think maybe you can put, you have a UNODC website, which we're going to put on the screen. So encouragement for all the multi-stakeholders to provide your written contribution to UNODC/ny@un.org, and we will make sure that we make a compilation of those inputs known to member states while they can really actively contribute to those discussions and negotiations.
Delphine, may I add one tiny thing? Tomorrow is the last day for our special call for applications to the fund in Africa. We are especially encouraging youth or survivor-led organizations to apply for this special session. We have received funding to give grants in Africa, and tomorrow is the very last day to encourage organizations in your countries to apply. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mira. So now this concludes this celebration of World Day Against Human Trafficking. Thank you very much for staying a little bit longer time. But I mean, as you all, I think, have admitted, this was a very important topic with very alarming figures that really require an international response from all of us and all stakeholders. At this stage, as Mira was mentioning, this is actually my last side event that I had the pleasure of moderating here in New York. As actually moving on in Southeast Asia and still with the UNODC. Let me just, on a personal note, really thank all the very wonderful cooperation I've been having with all of you, with member states, regional, international organizations, all the partners, all the friends throughout those years, because that means really been, I've really been blessed with all the engagement, personal cooperation, communication I've been having with all of you. Of course, stay remaining within UNODC. I would like just to really make a special thanks to the wonderful UNODC team here in New York. They're all wonderful professionals dedicated to support you all in advocating some of those very important drugs and crime-related issues here in New York, and ensuring that there is a proper bridge from all the good work that is done in policy development in Vienna, that to really get a voice here also in New York. So a really deep thank you from for all all the support and friendship that you've been giving me. A special thanks, of course, to Madiola and Deborah who are putting this wonderful event together. And on this very positive note, let's just mark that this is an International Day. There are many other events throughout the day to really celebrate the active, the fight of all of member states and CSOs that are really making a difference for the survivors on human trafficking. So thank you very much, and I'm wishing you a very good rest of the day. Thank you.